Welcome to our latest installment of Good Trouble from the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. I'm Kathy Wong Lau. I'm the Chief Diversity Officer at San Jose State University. I want to, first of all, remind everyone why this series is named Good Trouble. We have other installments that you can look for. But I want to quote the Honorable John Lewis in a very powerful statement that he made in 2018. Do not get lost in a sea of despair. Be hopeful, be optimistic. Our struggle is not the struggle of a day, a week, or a month, or a year. It is the struggle of a lifetime. Never, ever be afraid to make some noise and get in good trouble, necessary trouble. And this is, of course, has been an inspiration for many, many people beyond John Lewis's circle across the country and around the world. And so today we have some very important guests with us who get into good trouble and necessary trouble and do make noise on our campus, but in ways I think that are very inspiring for their fellow employees, faculty, staff, and administrators, as well as for students and the local community. And so before I start with introductions, I want to first talk to you about the fact that this is February, it is Black History Month, and today we chose for this episode to really talk about the importance of Black sororities and fraternities and the National Pan-Hellenic Council, or the NPHC, and the Divine Nine. And so a lot of times when we think about Greek organizations, the reason why I stutter is I'm trying to get out of the habit of calling them Greek organizations. I know they should be fraternities and sororities on campus. We often think that the multicultural ones are ones that are sort of add-ons, or we may not understand the really important prominence they play in communities and people's lives, but also the important function they serve in terms of creating a sense of belonging, but also the history of resistance that really created them in the first place. And so I want to just list for you the names of and the years of establishment and the institutions in which the Divine Nine organizations were established. So we have Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity, founded in 1906 at Cornell University. Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority, founded in 1908 at Howard University. Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity, founded in 1911 at Indiana University. Omega Psi Phi Fraternity, founded in 1911 at Howard University. Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, founded in 1913 at Howard University. Phi Beta Sigma fraternities, founded in 1914 at Howard University. Zeta Phi Beta Sorority, founded in 1920 at Howard University. Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority, founded in 1922 at Butler University, and then Iota Phi Theta Fraternity, founded in 1963 at Morgan State University. And so when you look at the foundations of many of our Black fraternities and sororities, they go back quite a ways, all the way to 1906. And so they've been around for a very long time. So now I'm going to go to our guests who all happen to be members of these organizations and have great experience and a lot of expert as well as personal experience to share. So I would like to ask our guests to first introduce yourselves to our audience, talk a little bit about the role that you play, the number of years that you've been on campus here at San Jose State. And then, when did you join an organization, an NPHC organization, and then which one you're a member of course, and then why did you choose the one that you chose? So it's kind of a lot of questions, and then you'll all remind each other, if you miss one of the questions. But who would like to start? Should I call on you? I'll call on Kalita.
I knew that was going to happen. So good afternoon. My name is Kalita McElroy. I'm currently serving in the senior AVP role, interim senior AVP role for enrollment management, overseeing our enrollment units, so financial aid, registration, admissions, undergrad admissions, and a communications unit here. I have been on campus, one of the old school ones, been here 33 years. I really enjoy what I do. Students keep me young, so I appreciate that. I actually joined Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated at Long Beach State, so another CSU campus, and that was in 1980. So one of the reasons that I joined is I come from a family of 5. I am the only girl, so I was looking for sisterhood. So that is one of the things that motivated me to join a sorority. Why Alpha Kappa Alpha? I, had attended a number of events on the campus, but I felt at home there, and I really appreciated the connections that I made. Long Beach State is a huge campus, like San Jose State, so it's one of those where you can get lost if you don't find someone or something to connect. So I was able to do that and really appreciate it over the years. I'm actually in a graduate chapter now. Just the sisterhood, the connection, the networking that I've made with the different sorors that I have there.
Great. Thank you so much. Next, Travis.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Wong. My name is Travis Boyce, and I am the department chair of African American Studies, and I'm also the director of Ethnic Studies Collaborative. And this is my second year here at San Jose State University. The last 11 years, I started my academic career at the University of Northern Colorado in Greeley in 2009. So I'm glad to be here. This is the second part of my career, so I'm looking forward to moving on to bigger things as well. So I joined Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity in 1999. I was a sophomore in college at Claflin University in Orangeburg, South Carolina. And Claflin is the oldest historically Black college in the state of South Carolina. It was founded in 1869, about 4 years after the American Civil War. Let's see, what else? I think what was great about joining a Black Greek organization in the American South is that, we had South Carolina State University next door, and they had all 8 NPHC organizations, 8 out of the 9 NPHC organizations. And you had universities throughout the area so it was relatively a robust group. But I was inspired to join Kappa Alpha Psi as a high school student. I was part of the Kappa League, and I'm so sorry, the Suns, I'm in my office right now. I was a part of the Kappa League, which is like their junior organization, their junior auxiliary organization. And they made the investment in me. They gave me a scholarship to go to college, and here I am.
Wow.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Next, Henderson.
Finding my mute button. Good afternoon, everybody. It's always a pleasure to be in such great company. So my name is Henderson Hill III. I serve as director for the Office of Student Involvement. I have direct purview over fraternity sorority life, campus leadership programs, campus programming, and then also purview of our recognized student organizations, which we average about 350-ish, inclusive of our fraternity sorority life chapters. So it'll be 5 years for me here at the institution. June 17th is how time has flown, but have thoroughly enjoyed the work that I've been able to do here at SJSU. So why I chose Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. My entry or my initiation in joining Kappa Alpha Psi was a little bit different. I joined after I graduated undergrad. And so, didn't have the opportunity to do an undergrad, but still understood that I still want to be a part of this amazing organization. And so grew up in a community with men who were part of the organization, who were my optometrists, who were my dentists, who were, business owners in the community. And they were just great men that I really looked up to. And, then when I started to learn more about who they were and them being members of the organization, I was like, it resonates with me. And so, I come from a big family as well. So I have 5 brothers and a sister. So I wasn't necessarily looking for brotherhood, but also looking just for commonality of people who are like-minded. I graduated from historically Black college, university, Nashville, Tennessee State University. And so was very aware of the importance of, NPHC chapters, the work that they did in the community and on campus, but also the community pieces. And so then as I, got into higher ed and worked at majority institutions, that also seeing that a lot of our students who joined those, it was community. It was that connection to not only keep them retained at the institution, but also help them to be able to transition and have those networking pieces like Khalida mentioned earlier. And so I am honored and blessed and privileged to be a part of this organization and continue to do the great work as a member.
Great. Thank you, Henderson. And Felicia.
Hi, everyone. Felicia McKee Fagans. I'm the Executive Assistant and Diversity Program Specialist in the Office of Diversity. And I've been at the campus 16 years now. Honestly, I can think about joining Sigma and it always makes me smile. I joined in spring '94 at the University of Southern California. Sigma Gamma Rho was just coming back to campus at the time that I joined. And I found that I wanted to be part of a Greek system. I wanted to learn more about it because I had an older cousin who was a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, and he would always visit on his way to step shows and stuff like that. So I was like, I have to see what this is all about. And then when I got to college, Sigma was one I had not heard of before. I'd heard of Delta and I've heard of AKA, and I was like, let me see what these other two are about as well, and was just the most comfortable with the sorors that were there. They took us places with them to hang out, to get to know us. And it was just a very friendly, collegial relationship even before I joined. And one of my good friends who lived on my floor in my dorms was like, she was super into Sigma. And she was like, let's go check them out, and dragged me along. And I'm glad she did. To this day, she's one of my best friends and one of my line sisters. And I also am active in the Silicon Valley Alumni Chapter here in the Bay Area. We just reached 100 members in our alumni chapter. So it's really exciting, the work that we're doing. We still do a lot of work in San Jose and the community, actually throughout the Bay Area. So Sigma's been a part of my life since I was 19 years old. So I can't even imagine life without my sorority at this point.
Thank you, all of you. And Felicia's answer, the last thing that you said, I think is a good segue into the next question, is how important have these organizations been in your life in terms of professional, personal networks, and just your sense of well-being? Anyone can share if they would like to.
I can share, because when Felicia, it's funny you were saying that, Kathy, because when Felicia said it, I was like, oh my God, I'm starting to reflect. I'm also starting to date myself, but I'm starting to reflect. I remember as a professional right out of grad school, a new professional out of grad school, moving to Seattle, Washington, didn't know anybody in Seattle, but the good brothers of Kappa Alpha Psi were like, come on in, we done found your barbershop, who was one of our fraternity brothers, was my barber the whole time I lived in Seattle. They had a house there where the alumni members met, and the undergraduates hung out there too as well. I mean, the first weekend I was there, they had me in a community parade. And so it was like, I just moved here. And so I just think of even the time I was in Bermuda doing some study abroad stuff for work, that I'm there, and who did I run into on a bus but a member of Kappa Alpha Psi who also invited me to dinner with his family. And so it has been one of those that I've really appreciated, the brotherhood and the support, and to be able to be somewhere and someone sees that you have on some paraphernalia or a shirt, and you can signal to one another, and just to be in that. I've run into brothers at the gym, et cetera, et cetera. So I've really, really appreciated that. Also from the standpoint, I would think even speaking more broader, not just with Kappa Alpha Psi and my membership there, but also just to other members of NPHC. We have a certain, we kind of resonate with one another. You might be a member of Alpha Phi Alpha, bless your heart, but at the same time, we still kind of resonate to say, hey, we have some commonality. We're part of NPHC, and how do we connect and support one another? So for me, like Felicia said, I cannot imagine my life without Kappa. So.
Thank you.
And I can piggyback off the good brother Henderson. In graduate school, so when I left Claflin, I went to graduate school at Ohio University, which was a very, very, very predominantly white institution. And I didn't know anyone there. But I happened to run into a good friend, he's now a brother now, that checked in on me, he was a grad student as well and a seasoned student there. And, but one thing I did appreciate about him, that he checked in on me, being a stranger in this strange place and being lonely that first year. And so those are the things I appreciate. So I think though that professional and that network support, that no matter where you go, now I know it's a cliche that you'll always find a brother or a sister there. And so that's helpful. And I think if we put that into context of Black America and having to be in spaces, predominantly white spaces, especially in this business in higher ed, where you can be in Atlanta, Georgia, or you can be in the middle of nowhere, Nebraska, that you will find a sense of community. So I think that that's something that's helpful for me. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
You know, Kathy, I would actually talk about what Henderson and Travis both said. I think even when you think about, we may be from different, as we say, communities, but there's always that crossover because there's that support that you may have when you're in a place where you don't see a lot of people that look like you. You know, even though it could be, I see Felicia, we've supported each other so much. It's not about she's in blue, I'm in pink. It's about supporting us as we both grow together and then supporting our students, because there's such a crossover, though we are in different sororities, but just knowing that there's that group, there's the people there that will network with you, that will open doors or, you know, show you the way to go, who will check you if you need to be checked, you know, so it's just that, you know, understanding that lived experience that we have, even though you may have went through like Henderson and Travis, same fraternity, different schools. But, you know, that shared lived experience and how we empower each other just to move to the next level.
And it sounds like some of the powerful things that are accomplished is that you feel like someone anticipated the problems that you may encounter and actually reached out to support you, you know, not to prevent you from having your own experiences, but just to be there, right, for you. And that sense of belonging, I think, sounds incredibly powerful, you know, for students who maybe haven't thought of joining an organization, that this is something, not to make a material sort of calculation that, yeah, I need that support and I should do it. But it actually, just from the glow when you're speaking, it means a lot more, obviously, in terms of your sense of who you are and your sense of belonging in the world. So, in connection. Great. Felicia, did you want to share anything else about the importance of these organizations in your life?
Absolutely. It was like them, like everyone else has said, having that community. My first job out of college, when I went to my interview, the person interviewing me, as soon as she found out I was Sigma Gamma Rho, because I had it on my resume, she was like, "What? I'm a Delta." And so the conversation totally shifted. And I can say she was like, "Yeah, this is no problem." And she went on to talk about sorority life and everything else. But also, I think for me, it drew me out of a more introverted self that I was before, because I was put in a lot of leadership roles within the sorority in my undergrad experience. So I learned to function as an extrovert in situations when I needed to, which has been very helpful in my life. I've never really thought I was introverted. I just thought, you know, I'm quiet, but people who knew me knew I wasn't. But people always thought I was shy, and I never understood that. But I got it once I started in my sorority, because they put me out there. They were like, "Okay, you're going to do this. Okay, we need someone to lead this. Here you go. You got an idea? Great. Yeah, you can take care of it." And I really couldn't say no. There weren't that many of us for me to give it to somebody else. So it made me come out of that. So when I needed to show my leadership skills with confidence, I could. And I don't think I would have gotten that anywhere else. And that continued when I graduated and moved to the Bay Area. I didn't know a lot of my sorority sisters here, but they were here, and I got to know them and joined the chapter here, and again, into leadership positions and things like that, which helped me grow as an individual. It helped me grow in my work, because when we had a regional conference and we hosted, I had to speak. It wasn't a choice. It was something that I had to do. And so that made me not fear speaking with people in higher up positions and leadership roles. Became something that I felt like I can handle that. If I need to do that, no problem. And that confidence, I know, definitely came from the sorority.
Mm-hmm. Great. Thank you. I just want to point out that there's such a wide range of, you know, when you all encountered joining an NPHC. So we have Travis, who was in high school, right? And all the way to Henderson, who was a graduate student. So I think oftentimes people think that maybe if you wait until you're a graduate student, it's too late, but obviously it's not. So that's really wonderful. Great, great. So now we have questions that are specific to each of you in terms of, you know, the role that you serve and the work that you do. So the first question we have is for Henderson. So since you're in student involvement, the question is, you know, what does it mean to you being a member of an NPHC organization while overseeing them on campus? So you're in one yourself, and you're also overseeing them, and sometimes overseeing them involves a lot of let's say some management and helping people make good choices, and also making sure that their longevity is there as well. So
yeah, it's good. I appreciate this question, Kathy, especially over this last few years that we've been really working with our NPHC chapters here at SJSU. And right before I jumped on this call, was having a conversation with one of the alumni members from Zeta Phi Beta and supporting them through their intake with their undergraduate members. And so for me, as someone who leads the area that supports and works with our fraternity sorority chapters and been a member of the fraternity sorority community, specifically NPHC, specifically my fraternity brothers, Kappa Alpha Psi are here present, Delta Rho chapter. It's an honor, privilege, and I think it's a lot of pressure. But I also think it's positive pressure, and I welcome it. Because from the standpoint of, you know, the institution is what it is, you know, the state of the world is what it is. Sometimes our Black students aren't really supported in the spaces that they need to be. They aren't held accountable in the way that they should be. I've told our MPA students, I told our Black students, we do not lower the bar of standards. We meet or exceed the standards. And so that as a leader and also as a Black person, also a member of an NPHC chapter, this is not necessarily just always a resort. It isn't, hey, you just have it your way, all that. No, it's how do we cultivate relationships? How do we cultivate engagement of learning? What is the expectation? What's the accountability? You're not babies, we're not babying you. But how do we make sure that you have a positive experience, but also knowing the expectations? And so for me, it's one of those that I've really been engaged in to say, hey, we have a really good opportunity to really support these students and to have a sense of community and what that looks like. But also as a member of the community, I know what we should and should not be doing. Yes, I joined Kappa almost 19 years ago, but at the same time, a lot of foundational stuff still remains to be the same with Kappa. A lot of the same foundational stuff still remains to be the same with NPHC and how we should be training for leadership. Not, you know, that's one of our mottos, Kappa outside, is training for leadership, but also how are we training our NPHC students for leadership? How are we supporting them to make sure that there's social organizations, all of that, but NPHC organizations that also stand on the grounding of how do we get back to the community? And these are lifelong commitments. I don't, you know, NPHC, you know, not knocking anybody else's affiliations, but we don't join our organizations like, oh, I'll just do that while I'm in undergrad, or I'll just do that for a month or two. They're lifelong commitments. And so how are we also cultivating that to translate with our students here? I know the students probably get a little annoyed with me, but we will do right. We will do what we're supposed to be doing, and we will be exceptional. And so my responsibility, since the expectation is to be exceptional, that I not only as a leader stand in that gap, I also expect my team to stand in that gap and the rest of the institution to stand in that gap to help students to get to meet that expectation of being exceptional. It's not like, hey, just be exceptional, just go figure it out. It's like, hey, be exceptional and let's give you the tools to get there. So it's also something I don't take the responsibility very lightly. I probably have made some people a little bit uncomfortable at the institution about how are you stepping up to help our Black students to be successful? What is the institution sometimes anteing up? Like we want to be diverse, we want to be inclusive, but also where are we putting our money where our mouth is and our resources and our time. So that's and then also, you know, the reality is we have a smaller number of Black students here at the institution. So when I sit in the spaces where their voices are not heard or they're not sometimes thought of, I always make sure that as a leader on this campus that I do stand in that space and do make sure that the voice of our students are not forgotten or not heard. So hopefully that gives a little bit of insight.
Yeah. So I'm going to go off script a little here because of what you just shared in the last thing that you said, Anderson, and I would like to ask Dr. Boyce to talk about. I think that I saw you nodding very vigorously, and I know a lot of it is because of the role that you play in African American studies and the importance of ethnic studies and that liberatory framework for students to discover. And so would you mind sharing a little bit about the importance of voice and African American studies and the history of why is it important for us to know the history of NPHCs and what they have done and what they will continue to do?
Oh, absolutely. And again, I like to back up, and I think it's a great question. If we think about this current political moment where the teaching of race, this whole critical race theory hysteria is reflected in how, particularly, I think it's anti-Black, this whole anti-Black history narrative. So if we look at NPHC and particularly the history of it, I think about the early 20th century. So, and there's a film called The Birth of a Nation that came out in 1915. And so by 1915, you had roughly 6 out of the 9 NPHC organizations already established. And during this time, there was that horrible film reinforced this notion of Jim Crow, of white supremacy, anti-Black racism, anti-Black violence. A sitting president of the United States endorsed the film. And so I guess what I'm trying to make here, this was a reflection of what America looked like, because it was so widely popular that, a sitting US president did this. And so I would often think about, like, what would those early founders and the early members have been thinking about during this period when, this film came out. So when we look at the histories of these groups, so we put it in perspective, we look at these histories of these organizations, we have to embed African American history and the importance of a critical understanding of how higher education and how Black students were persevering in the early 20th century, like they were in the 1960s, like they were in 2020. And so you still see this continued pattern. So that's something I would encourage people to think about, is to put things in historical perspective. If we look at my fraternity or even Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity, which were founded at predominantly white institutions, I would be curious to know, how did their legacies play out 50 years later and 100 years later? And we're still seeing the same issues in this country, the same racial issues on college campuses. So that's I think is a way that we can look at these histories within the context of a very low period of race relations in this country. These early days in the 20th century.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's very powerful. Felicia, talking about 100-year-old organizations. So your sorority, Sigma Gamma Rho, is celebrating 100 years this year. What does it mean to your organization and to you as a member?
So as Travis was speaking, I was just thinking about our organization, because it was founded also at a predominantly white institution in Indiana, where the KKK was headquartered. And so it was at a time where, the community had to stick together. And this it was originally a teachers organization, and it was to help ensure that we would have teachers in the community. And it was for survival. You needed to get through college and you needed to have a support system. And so 100 years later, we have the same thing. We have the rise of these hate groups. And I hadn't even thought about the context that Travis was talking about, but it's so true. I mean, right now, the sorority is celebrating like you would not believe. There are so many events all the time, constantly being planned and executed. There's going to be huge celebrations because of the perseverance of the organization. And we're towards the end of the group. We're like one of the babies of the group. So all the others have had their centennials, and it's like finally our turn. So, I mean, there is like you wouldn't even imagine what all of our web stuff looks like. I'm just like overwhelmed by all of the celebration and activity taking place. And for me, I tend to be more reflective, and I feel like it is amazing to think about what we've been through, the different issues the sorority has encountered, the lawsuits we've made it through, and times we've been like, is this gonna take down the organization? No, we're surviving this. And all of the things that we've tried to put in place to ensure that our membership continues to thrive. And I'm in that place, having been through some things with the sorority myself. So it's like, wow, it's an incredible moment. It's a tremendous accomplishment. And I'm very thankful, because I feel like these women that I'm around helped me to grow up into the woman that I am. And so I feel like I need to celebrate them as well, personally, and as well as the organization. And I don't know if I'm going to go to all the big celebrations because of COVID and everything else that's happening, but I'm extremely grateful.
Thank you. Kalita, I think in this illustrious panel, you are someone who is an advisor to one of these organizations. How do you see these organizations? So you get more of a very current, similar to Henderson, but as an advisor, you get sort of an inside look into how important a Black sorority or a Black fraternity is to retention and a sense of belonging and well-being for our students. Can you speak a little bit about that?
I find that when I even think back to my experience, because I was at a PWI campus as well, is that when we look at our campus climate, results that a lot of our students leave because they don't feel like they belong. They don't feel like a community, that they're not wanted here. So I think part of that is, having our sororities, fraternities, it builds that community, it builds that family. So they see someone who looks like them. Because even at San Jose State, when you look at the numbers, there's only about 3 to 4% of Black African-American students here on campus. That is such a small number when you think of, we have over about 35,000 students. That is really small. So I think, and then also looking at our retention rates, our graduation rates. Students come and they leave after 1 semester or leave after 2 semesters. It could be for a number of reasons. It could be financial because of where we live. And it could be because I just didn't feel at home. I didn't feel comfortable. Is that I think all of us in our positions that we look to engage our students, whether you join AKA or you join another sorority or another fraternity, is that I think we all know to reach out, and create a welcoming place for our students. And part of that is, being part of a sorority. I know that, working with Henderson over the years, we've kind of gone up and down. We've had some tribulations that, we're working through, and we're hoping to be at a better place. Especially, I am the campus advisor for the AKAs. It's just that, we all just want to join and be part of that, whether a student joins a sorority fraternity, but to feel needed. And I think, we teach that, like Felicia said, you learn some skills by being in the group, in the NPHC, that you can teach others who may not have to join, but we're working together, we're supporting each other. So definitely, with San Jose State, we definitely need to work on, retention and graduation. I think part of belonging could be joining a sorority or fraternity there.
Right. What strikes me as you each talk is how much you've gotten, but also how much you are connected and you give, right? That there's this sense of commitment. And I know that on our campus, all of you are leaders in not only, engaging with and inspiring and teaching and mentoring our Black students, but a lot of other students as well. And so when we think about high impact practices, there are sometimes people, administrators, and I'm not even saying that it happens here. I think sometimes it happens subconsciously. Sometimes people feel like, gosh, these organizations are kind of, they require a lot of energy, right, to maintain and to support and to find advisors and to guide and to mentor. Is it worth the effort? And so I'm being facetious, right? I mean, I believe it's really important and it's really worth the effort. But for those folks who aren't familiar, I think with fraternities and sororities and how important they can be in terms of your entire career, your entire academic and professional and personal career. What can you say in terms of, closing sort of thoughts to those who are on our campus or other folks who are in higher ed or even to families or parents or students themselves? What can you say is important about these organizations, and why is it important? What's so strong about their legacy that still obviously thrives after over 100 years?
I think I would lean into a couple of pieces. One piece I would like look at the membership of these organizations. Look at John Lewis, who you quoted earlier, is member Phi Beta Sigma. Yep. Like MLK, Martin Luther King, member of Alpha Phi Alpha. Johnny Cochran, member of Kappa Alpha Psi. Like I could go on and on. Our current vice president of the United States, a member of Alpha Kappa. Don't get me started. So all of that to say that look at the long legacy that these folks have left for us. Mm-hmm. I think that folks who, I'll just be very transparent, I'll just be Henderson, who only I can be. If folks are clueless, they better get a clue. These are organizations that not only help with some of the tangible things that Kalita mentioned earlier about retention and sense of belonging for our, not, specifically our Black students, but also our minority students. You better get a clue, because what will then happen is there will start to, if we don't dig into, cultivate and build that, there will start those gaps would, retention and graduation for Black students will continue to grow. Mm-hmm. If the institution doesn't learn how to support, Henderson and student involvement can be the only ones doing it. We do our piece, but there has to be a village support system of how we do that. Yeah. These organizations have taught so many things to so many people, whether it's leadership skill. Some of the stuff I learned from Kappa, I still hold and use in my day-to-day, not only with my daughter, but also engaging with students, engaging with colleagues, mm-hmm. how to run a meeting, how to navigate politics, how to navigate structures, how to just be a good person. Mm-hmm. These are things, when you talk about, Kathy, high impact practices, our organizations in themselves are high impact practices connected to and translating to to universities and campuses to support our students. If we want to put it into that framework, those are high impact practices in themselves, because they teach what? Giving back to the community, leadership skills, engagement in and outside of the classroom. So if folks are saying, well, what's the purpose? Why should we invest? Hey, better do some Google searches, and then also look at the community in which you're in. So, and also that's me wearing the hat of a member of a higher ed professional, as a practitioner, as an educator, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, I'm biased, but also the research don't lie. So people lie, but research and data don't lie. And so people, to understand, those are some things that you have to really invest in these organizations. Not to say they are work, they do take a lot of energy, but I've always been an advocate that you do the hard work on the front end, so you're not having to do it on the back end. Mm-hmm. Same thing with our organization. So, mm-hmm.
Great, thank you.
I would like to say, for those who aren't sure, who don't know if it's worth it, I think a lot of times when you only see the surface of these organizations, you see stepping or you see the problems, but you have to look deeper than the surface. Anything worth having is worth the work. And I think that when people have interactions with those of us who are members of these organizations, they may not even know that we are. And it's not until you ask the question and until you learn more, you take the effort and energy to learn more, then that's when you can truly see the blessing behind these groups, because they are the support system for so many students. Mm-hmm. When you go to Black college campuses, you may see huge organizations. It's harder here in California because there are fewer of us. But for those of us who do join, we support our members in getting through to graduation. Our graduate chapters, our grad members, are very involved with the undergraduates because they want to see them thrive. And it's like a built-in mentorship, because you can't have an undergraduate chapter without a grad chapter attached to it. At least in my organization, we weren't allowed to function without regular meetings with our grad chapter. So they knew what we were doing. They knew what we were doing in terms of community service projects. They made sure we were doing the national programs that we had to do. They wanted to know what parties are coming up and are you going, just to be accountable. Not like they were going to pop up at the party with us, but they wanted to know what's going on in your world. There were times when we had study nights because they were like, hey, this is what you need to do. I mean, even joining my organization, we had designated times when we had to study. I not kid you not, because people think, oh, when you're joining, you have all this. I made Dean's List the semester I was online, and that is the only semester I was on the Dean's List, because they were like, no, we're serious about you studying. We're serious about you being involved in other campus organizations. And it was fun, but it was a lot of work too. And I think my parents didn't know anything about sororities and fraternities when I went to college. And so they were like, well, if you want to do this, that's on you. It's your responsibility. They wanted me to make sure I knew how to pay for it and all that stuff. And that they held me accountable to it. And so I made sure that it was something I could handle. It grew me into a responsible adult. And I think that's what the sororities do. One of the things we ask people who are interested is, do you understand this commitment that you're making? Because we understand when undergraduates are coming in, they're 19, 20, 21, they might not get it, but we want to talk to them about it so they understand. And I don't think undergraduates get that a lot. When you're young and you want to join something, who talks to you about being responsible? But that is part of the process. So I think dig deeper when you're not sure, find out what these groups are about. And parents can always talk to grad members to find out if they don't know. I talked to parents before as an advisor previously. So it's definitely work, like Henderson said, but it's totally worth it.
Great advice.
And just really quick, just to reemphasize my previous point, just the importance that, NPHC organizations, and particularly 8 out of the 9, are a byproduct of the Jim Crow era America. And at a time where African Americans were barred from some of these mainstream organizations, not just not just Greek letter organizations, but professional societies and what have you. So you have groups like the American Bar Association or the National Bar Association, which was founded for professional networks for African American attorneys, which still goes on today. They were founded in the early 20th century. So I think that historical piece is important. And again, I go back to this hysteria, this anti-Black history hysteria, that if we're not careful, we may lose it all here. So that's something I would keep in mind, that we need to keep these organizations going, but we need to understand the histories that they come from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Kalita?
I would say, and it's probably cliche, when I think of, when you hear that saying about too much is given, much is expected. So, you think of the college life, it's not School Days, the movie. I just referenced that because I saw it the other day on TV. But, yes, you can have fun at that level, but then there's business to be done. Whether you're on the college campus, and then once you get, into your career at the graduate level, whether it's in higher ed, you're in the community, we're reaching back, to bring people forward, to bring our students forward. Part of what I do at the grad chapter, we have a Black college awareness, to engage students to go to a Black college, but it's not the only college you can go to. There's California schools that are just as good, but it's just, I'm learning, I have to do more. I can't just stop with me. I can't just be about, I'm an AKA, my job's done. No, it continues. We continue to work together. We continue to support the community and the higher education, whatever we can do. So it's just ongoing, just never ending. But I enjoy the work. And as long as you're in a community, it's a group, it's not just you. You have others that you can work with. Even what we do on campus, it's not just one single person. We're doing it together.
Yeah. Wow. We're coming to the end of our interview, and I just wanted to thank all of you. I'm just inspired and in awe, and really appreciate, I think, the inside look you've given about how NPHC has impacted your lives and the lives of other people, and it gives us a glimpse, I think, of the importance of supporting these organizations. But also, I'm just so happy that we're able to learn about something about you, and that our campus and other people that are viewing this will learn a little bit about you that maybe they didn't know. But I'm also mindful of the theme for this year for Black History Month, which is Black health and wellness. And I can't imagine that the things that you have said and that you've shared in these experiences and what NPHC organizations have done for you does not contribute greatly to long-term wellness and health. And we know that those are both tied, right? Physical health and everything is also tied to mental wellness. And so thank you so much for all that you do. I know that, I know that all of you are exhausted, just like I am and other people, because we're all working hard and we're in that liminal space of, COVID numbers going down and returning to campus, but still mitigating. And so I know that there are hybrid spaces that you're trying to negotiate like everybody else. And so really appreciate the time and effort that you spent spending this hour with us and sharing deeply, for our community. So thank you so much. Proud to be your colleague on campus. Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate it, y'all. It's good
Thank
seeing everybody.
you.
All right.
Have a great day.
Have a good one.
Have a
Thank you,
great
Kathy.
day.
Bye.